Having said that, I'd like to touch on a very important subject. In every palace we entered in the eastern region during the campaign, Nananom continuously prayed and asked us to conduct the campaign in a very peaceful manner and in accord with the traditions of the country, i.e., avoiding insults and the like. We did our best in that direction. But there is one important point that we must always remind ourselves about. Nananom, we in NDC hold the chieftaincy institution in very, very high esteem, because we believe that Nananom are the custodians of our tradition. And any nation without proper culture and tradition is doomed to fail. So the up-and-coming youth are guided by Nananom about our ways of doing things, our culture, and our traditions. That is why, in molding the 1992 Constitution, we went to every length to make sure that the chieftaincy institution is protected and insulated from partisan politics. Before 1992, chiefs were allowed to participate in partisan politics without any restraint. But in molding the 1992 Constitution, we went back to try to find out some of the causes of the destabilization of our democracy. And luckily, there was a good representation of Nananom in the Consultative Assembly. I can remember Osajifo Kuntunkununku of blessed memory. He was with us at the Consultative Assembly. And we all agreed that there was an urgent need to protect and preserve our chieftaincy institution, to play a stabilization role in our democracy if we were to succeed in our democratic experiments. And so that's how come we remove the constitutional provisions that required chiefs to seek government approval before they can be recognized. In the past, under all the previous constitutions, when you are installed a chief, it takes the government to recognize you, give you recognition before you can call yourself a chief. We discovered that this is an insult to that holy institution, so that provision must be scrapped. And we did scrap that provision, because we don't think that it's a good reason for somebody who may not come from that traditional area to be the one deciding who the chief will be in that different traditional area. So we scrapped it and said that chiefs and queen mothers must be installed based on their customary practices. And once the traditional institutions install their chiefs, government has no role to play in that. And that is why when we are in government, we make sure that we do not interfere in chieftaincy matters at all. We also removed the clauses that allow chiefs to participate in our type of politics, the partisan type of politics. Why? Because it is through the partisan politics that government leaders are elected. So if we allow the chiefs to participate, some of the chiefs may find themselves on the right side of the government in power. Others may find themselves on the wrong side of government in power. So if you have a president who is convinced that some Nananom voted against him, and he has all the powers of commander-in-chief and all that, you know that there is certainly trouble for those Nananom who voted against him. So we said that this thing should not happen. Nananom should be neutral. And in their neutrality, they can see all of us as their subjects, because there is no politician who does not serve one paramount chief or the other. So in the practice of our politics, if we are seen by Nananom to be crossing the boundaries, then Nananom will have the courage to call us to order. But if we allow Nananom to participate in partisan politics, and we find Nananom, some of them, to be against us and others for us, when there is any conflict, and the same Nananom who has supported our opponent now turn around to be judges, to be calling us, and to be arbitrating on matters that relate to our politics, it will be difficult for them to gather that courage to approach that assignment. And it will be difficult for us politicians to also accept any such arbitration. And that is why we sought to insulate the chieftaincy institution from partisan politics. So Nananom, we are committed not to drag any chiefs into politics, because we know the repercussions will not be good for the country. But nobody can grant you independence if you don't want independence. So we will play our role. We expect Nananom to also play their role as independent institution. And that is why there is also a provision that politicians in parliament cannot pass any law that affects chieftaincy unless that law is presented to the House of Chiefs for their input. If they block it, that will be the end. This is to prevent occurrences in the past where politicians declared that Nananom will run away and leave their sandals and all that. We wanted to make a clean break so that we can protect our hallowed institution of chieftaincy, so the chieftaincy institution can play a stabilization role in our democracy, and to ensure that there will be peace, and to also ensure that our customary practices will be preserved and handed over to future generations. That, we think, is how we can build a better Ghana. So Nananom, we thank you so far for opening your doors to us without any discrimination, at least where we went around during our campaigning. And we want to encourage you to continue on that path and to call your colleagues who may be found to be engaging in politics, and then alerting them to the dangers of chiefs entering multi-party politics, not for themselves alone, but for the country, because we all want a stable country, and we all want a chieftaincy institution that can arbitrate on difficult issues where politicians fail. So Nananom, I would like to end here, and thank you very much, and encourage you to stay on the path of independence and to stay on the path of peace building and to continue to pray, pour libation, pray for us, pray for every politician, not us alone. Advise every politician, not us alone. And if Nananum indicates that violence is abhorred, that advice must go to all politicians in the country. I want to thank you, and may God bless our hallowed chieftains.